The first time I noticed her, I was staring at my phone, pretending to scroll, and she walked past the doorway like she owned the quiet air of the room. My friend's mom, Claire, mid-40s, but something about her made the years disappear. Her hair caught the late afternoon light, a soft honey brown that shimmered like it knew secrets. She didn't see me, at least not yet, but I felt my pulse adjust anyway, as if my body had already recognized her. I was supposed to be delivering a stack of old books my friend had left in his bedroom, but I lingered in the hallway, pretending to check the titles. Hey, I said, voice too loud, too uncertain. My hand jerked as I balanced the books, like a bad magician fumbling a trick. Claire turned slowly. "Oh, hi," she said, and for a moment, the room tilted. There was warmth in her voice, not patronizing, just soft and real. My stomach nodded in a way I couldn't name. I looked down at the books, pretending they mattered more than her presence. "You're taller than I remember," she added, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Her fingers lingered there a moment longer than necessary, and I caught it. I caught it all. The slight hesitation, the curve of her lips when she smiled, the way her eyes paused on me like they were trying to remember something they'd lost. "Ive grown?" I guess, I mumbled, feeling ridiculous. My tongue felt like it had swallowed cotton. She laughed softly, a sound that didn't belong in my ordinary, messy life, but somehow made it feel possible. We lingered in that hallway longer than we should have. I noticed the faint scent of vanilla and something earthy, like the rain hitting dirt after a long drought. My hand tightened around the stack of books without realizing it. Claire shifted closer just a few inches, and my heart started a rhythm that wasn't mine anymore. "You remind me what it feels like to be seen," she said, almost whispering, like she wasn't even sure she should have said it. Her eyes didn't leave mine. I blinked. I think I blinked too slowly. What do you mean?" I asked, voice cracking slightly. My brain couldn't form words fast enough. She shrugged, a small, self-conscious motion that made her look younger, softer. "I don't know. Just when you're here, it's like I can breathe for a second." She smiled again, that tiny, vulnerable smile, and suddenly, everything I thought I knew about myself felt obsolete. I wanted to tell her she made me feel the same, but the words stuck behind my teeth. Instead, I adjusted the books, pretending the shuffle meant something other than my racing pulse. The moment hung between us, suspended, like the air itself was holding its breath. And then, just as I thought I could stay in that strange, fragile bubble forever, the sound of a doorbell ripped through the quiet. Claire's eyes widened for a fraction of a second. I froze, feeling every heartbeat hammering against my ribs. Whoever, or whatever, was there was going to interrupt this, and I wasn't ready. She glanced at me, and our gazes locked. Something unspoken passed between us, electric and dangerous, and I realized I didn't want this moment to end. Not yet. I didn't move when she disappeared into the kitchen. The doorbell had rung again, echoing in the quiet apartment, but my mind refused to follow it. I couldn't stop replaying the words she'd whispered. "You remind me what it feels like to be seen." Every time I tried to make sense of it, my chest tightened, and I hated myself a little for feeling this way about my friend's mom. I remember my last relationship, if you could even call it that. A year ago, I thought I'd love someone, but it ended in silence and excuses I still haven't forgiven myself for. I hadn't wanted to care, hadn't wanted to notice. And now, here I was aware of every small motion she made, the way her fingers brushed the counter as she poured herself coffee, the way her hair fell over one shoulder in a way that made my pulse hitched without permission. She turned, catching me staring. I looked away too quickly, embarrassed. "Do you want some coffee?" she asked. Her tone was casual, but her eyes didn't leave mine. That's the thing about her. There was always something beneath the surface. She'd lived enough to know when someone was holding back, when they were pretending to be calm. And I wasn't fooling her. I could see the lines in her face, soft traces of laughter, worry, exhaustion. She carried memories like invisible weight in the space between her shoulders. I wondered about them. I wanted to trace them, learn them, understand the quiet gravity she seemed to carry. But it was dangerous. I knew it. My friend trusted me with his life, and I was standing here, caught in some impossible gravity toward the one person who should have been off limits. She was older, wiser, aware of the risks. I was reckless, naive, and probably too honest in my longing. There was no room for excuses, no chance to pretend. Do you ever feel like life keeps moving and you're just waiting for a reason to breathe? She asked, voice low, almost vulnerable. I didn't answer immediately because the truth was I didn't know how. I nodded slowly. Yeah, sometimes. A silence stretched between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was full, weighted with things neither of us dared to name. I wanted to tell her I wanted more than just these stolen moments in her hallway. I wanted to tell her she had no idea how much she'd unsettled me, how much I was thinking about her hours before I'd seen her. But I didn't. Instead, I just stood there, pretending to adjust the books again. Then she reached out, just a finger brushing the edge of my hand as she passed. It wasn't much, but it was everything. A jolt ran through me, a recognition, a permission, a silent promise. I caught her hand for a heartbeat longer than necessary, feeling the warmth, the hesitation, the subtle electricity that neither of us spoke aloud. Her eyes flicked to mine, and for a second I thought she might say something, but she didn't. She just let the touch linger, and it was enough. Enough to make me question everything I thought I knew about boundaries. And in that quiet, suspended moment, I realized I was already too far gone. I didn't notice the text at first. It buzzed against my leg, a simple notification from my roommate, but the timing made my stomach twist. You coming to the game later? Easy enough. Innocuous. But my mind wasn't on basketball. It was on Claire, on the way her hand had lingered on mine, the quiet electricity between us that I knew was dangerous. I shook my head, trying to push it away, but then she appeared at the doorway, holding a mug, her hair slightly mussed from moving around the kitchen. Her eyes caught mine, sharp and knowing. I swallowed. You're still here. I managed. My voice sounded small. I couldn't let you leave yet, she said, and for a fraction of a second, the room contracted around us. I felt the pull, the gravity that had been building since the first moment I saw her. My fingers brushed hers again when I shifted the books, and I realized I could count the beats of my heart by her inhalations. And then, footsteps. Sharp, deliberate. My stomach dropped. Her husband. I didn't see him at first, only heard the soft thud of keys on the counter. Claire stiffened immediately. Her face was still, but the tension was all around her. I tried to back away, my pulse hammering. Claire? Is someone here? His voice was casual, but the suspicion was undercutting everything. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She glanced at me quickly. I wanted to melt into the floor, disappear. Just a friend, she said, forcing the words like they tasted wrong. I nodded, but my mind was racing. A friend. Just a friend. Nothing more. Nothing to betray the pull between us. I wanted to tell her I couldn't leave. I wanted to tell her that every moment apart felt like a weight in my chest. But I stayed frozen, pretending the books were my only concern. He moved past, humming a tune I didn't recognize, and I let out a quiet breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Claire's shoulders sagged slightly. Our eyes met again, and for a moment, the world shrank to just us. I needed to close the distance. My fingers twitched. I wanted to reach for her, to hold her just once, and then maybe never let go. But guilt clawed at me, sharp and bitter. I shouldn't want this. She shouldn't want this. We were teetering on a line we weren't supposed to cross. And yet, I couldn't stop. I couldn't look away. I have to go, I said suddenly, words jerky too fast. My hand brushed hers again, and I felt her inhale sharply. The contact was electric, forbidden, and it made me ache in ways I didn't have language for. She nodded, but didn't pull away. Not fully. Just enough that it hurt. Just enough that the tension, messy, dangerous, delicious, stayed between us. I left, heart hammering, knowing I'd run from the very thing I wanted most. And yet, in that escape, in the guilt and the fear, I knew one truth. Whatever I was feeling for her wasn't going anywhere. Not even if I tried. I hadn't planned to see her again so soon, But life has a cruel way of forcing the impossible. Claire was in the park, sitting on the same worn bench I remembered from when I was a kid, the one where my friend and I used to toss a frisbee until the sun disappeared. She looked smaller somehow, hunched over her hands, lost in thought. The late afternoon light caught her hair again, making it glow like it knew it had me in its spell. I approached quietly, my footsteps hesitant. I want to call her name, but fear froze me. What if I wasn't supposed to be here? What if everything we'd felt, everything I wanted, was a mistake? Hey, I said finally, voice low. She looked up, startled, and for a heartbeat, I saw the flash of something. Relief? Regret? Desire? I couldn't tell. I didn't think you'd come, she said. Her voice was soft, fragile, and it struck me harder than I expected. I sat down beside her, close enough that our knees almost touched. We sat in silence for a while. I wanted to say everything, but the words felt like stones in my mouth. Finally, I broke. I keep thinking about you. My voice was barely audible. She didn't respond immediately. Her hands twisted in her lap, fingers brushing the fabric of her sweater. You shouldn't, she whispered. My heart twisted. She was beautiful, scared, and impossibly human. You're married, I said, the words out before I could stop them. I know it's wrong. I know I shouldn't want this. But I do. Her eyes met mine, wide and unguarded. I had never seen her like this. No armor, no careful politeness, just raw. And in that rawness, I saw the same pull I felt mirrored back at me. I don't know if I can do this, she said, voice trembling. I'm trying not to. Her gaze flicked to a jogger passing by, her jaw tightening. I felt it too, the jealousy, sudden and bitter. It wasn't just me. She wanted to be wanted fully without boundaries, and yet the world, or our circumstances, kept saying no. I leaned slightly closer. My heart hammered. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to reach out, to close the distance, to bridge the impossible gap between desire and danger. But I hesitated. I didn't know if she'd pull me in or push me away. She exhaled sharply, and I could see her chest rising and falling, the tension radiating in every line of her body. I don't want to hurt anyone, she said, almost a whisper. And then she looked at me, really looked at me, and my world tilted. Something in her gaze shifted, a mix of longing and fear, a crack in the armor that had always kept us apart. I leaned in just slightly. My lips hovered over hers, the air thick, charged. I wanted to close the distance, wanted to let everything go, wanted to see if the world would shatter or bend in our favor. And just as the moment stretched, frozen, on the edge of impossibility, a phone buzzed sharply in her bag. Her eyes snapped toward it. I froze, breath caught in my throat, because the spell, the fragile, dangerous intimacy we'd built, was hanging by a thread. And I didn't know if we'd ever get the chance again. I thought the hardest part was resisting her. I thought the danger was the unspoken tension, the stolen touches, the quiet desire. But life had a way of proving me wrong. It started with a message. My phone buzzed while I was leaving the coffee shop near Claire's apartment. I assumed it was my roommate again, something mundane, but when I glanced down, my stomach sank. Did you see Claire and him today? You need to know what she's doing. My fingers froze. The sender wasn't a friend. It was my own friend, the son. The one whose mother had my heart without me even asking. Panic bloomed immediately. I tried to text back, but my thumb hovered uselessly over the screen. I couldn't deny it. I couldn't lie. Not to him, not to myself. Later that evening, I saw her at the door, waiting with that soft, impossible smile. She didn't notice the tension radiating off me. Hey, she said, did you get the books back to him? I nodded, but my hands were shaking. I couldn't bring myself to tell her. Not yet. Not here. She tilted her head, sensing something, always sensing something, and I hated how transparent I was to her. And then it happened. She laughed softly at something I said, leaning in just slightly, too close, impossibly close, and I wanted to kiss her. I wanted it so badly it hurt. But before I could, the door creaked open. It wasn't her husband. It was my friend. The world tilted, and my chest constricted like someone had slammed a fist into it. His eyes darted between us, and I swear I could see the truth hitting him before he even spoke. Hey, he said, voice unsure. Not accusatory, not loud, just aware. Claire stiffened. Her hand dropped from mine, just a whisper contact, but enough to make the loss sting like fire. I didn't know you were here, I said, fumbling over words. Neither of us said anything for a beat too long. The air vibrated with tension, guilt, and that dangerous, unspoken attraction that still lingered between us. I wanted to explain, to confess, to beg her not to leave. But I couldn't. Not with him there. He left almost immediately after a quiet, awkward exchange, but the damage was done. The bubble we'd created, the fragile, impossible intimacy, had been punctured. Claire sank onto the couch, silent, running a hand through her hair. I didn't think he'd come home, she murmured. I wanted to reach for her again, to assure her, to erase the fear and guilt etched in her face. But I hesitated because now everything had changed. The risk wasn't just us anymore. It was betrayal, misunderstanding, a truth that could never be undone. She looked at me then, eyes glimmering with something I couldn't name. Desire? Fear? Anger? All of it tangled together. And in that gaze, I realized this was no longer about resisting temptation. It was about surviving it. And somewhere in the twist of fate and fear, I knew one thing. I couldn't walk away. Not now. Not ever. The apartment smelled faintly of rain and coffee, a strange comfort in the chaos of what had just happened. Claire sat on the edge of the couch, knees pulled close, fingers nervously twisting the hem of her sweater. I stood in the doorway, books forgotten, heart hammering so loudly I was sure she could hear it. I began, but the words stumbled over each other, collapsing under the weight of everything unsaid. I took a step closer, unsure if I had the right to, unsure if she wanted me to. But the distance between us felt unbearable. Her gaze met mine, steady, fragile, open. You don't have to say anything, she whispered. And yet, the look in her eyes demanded truth, demanded honesty, demanded risk. I moved to sit beside her. The couch dipped under our combined weight, small, intimate, and suddenly terrifying. I can't stop thinking about you, I admitted, my voice barely more than a breath. And I don't want to. Her lips parted slightly. A tremor ran through her hands. I know I shouldn't feel this, she said, voice breaking in the way that made my chest ache. But I do. Every time I see you, it's like a part of me wakes up I forgot existed. We sat there in silence for a moment that felt like both eternity and seconds suspended in a fragile bubble. I wanted to reach out, to close the impossible distance, but fear gripped me. Fear of judgment, fear of consequences, fear of breaking everything. And yet desire won. Slowly, carefully, I lifted my hand and brushed it against hers. Her fingers twitched, hesitated, and then interlaced with mine. The contact wasn't perfect or cinematic. It was trembling, uncertain, human. And it was enough. I don't care about the rules, I said, voice trembling. Not right now. I just need this. Need you. She swallowed hard, a shiver running through her. I've been so careful, she murmured. So careful not to... Her words faltered, leaving the thought hanging between us. She tilted her head, eyes searching mine. Not to ruin everything. I leaned closer, heart in my throat. Maybe we can't control everything, I whispered. But we could decide this moment. Here, us. She hesitated, lips just inches from mine. And in that pause, the breath before contact, I saw everything reflected in her gaze. Fear, longing, hesitation, and the faintest glimmer of surrender. And then a laugh, soft, nervous, human, escaped her. I wanted this for longer than I should admit, she said. I smiled, almost bitterly, almost desperately. Me too. We froze there, suspended in that delicate, impossible balance. Neither of us moved fully, neither fully backed away. Just presence. Connection. A fragile truce between desire and reason. Outside, the city hummed with indifferent life. Inside, the world had narrowed to just the two of us, hearts exposed, truths bared, and an uncertain future stretching ahead. And for the first time in a long time, I realized it didn't matter what came next. For now, we had this. Weeks had passed since that afternoon in the park, the one where everything shifted and nothing was the same. Life, stubborn and relentless, kept moving around us, but somehow, in the quiet corners of stolen moments, we had carved our own world. Claire and I had learned the dangerous art of balance. Every glance, every brush of a hand, every soft smile carried weight, yet also something undefinable and alive. It wasn't perfect. There were still stolen phone calls when no one else was home, quick coffees at quiet cafes, laughter that came too easily but lingered too long. But in that imperfection, there was honesty. There was truth. One evening, the rain drummed softly against the windows of her apartment. I was curled on the couch, her head resting lightly against my shoulder, listening to the rhythm of the storm. "I never thought I'd feel this," she murmured, voice almost swallowed by the rain. Like someone finally sees me. I tightened my hold, brushing her hair back gently. "You've always deserved to be seen," I said quietly, so only she could hear. "I just got lucky to be here when it mattered." She laughed softly, a little self-conscious, a little tender. "You say that, but I think you see more than anyone ever has." Her eyes met mine, lingering in that way that made the rest of the world blur. It wasn't a fairy tale. There were still moments of guilt, of awkwardness, of questions about what the world would think if it ever knew. But there was also connection, messy, imperfect, breathtakingly human. I remembered the first time she had told me, "You remind me what it feels like to be seen." The memory was a quiet anchor, grounding me even in moments of doubt. That small confession had changed everything. Every laugh we shared, every glance, every hesitant touch was a thread woven from that fragile, beautiful truth. And yet, we didn't need to define it all. We didn't need promises that could crumble under the weight of reality. We simply existed in those moments, aware of risk, aware of consequence, but unwilling to ignore what felt impossible to deny. The rain eased, leaving a soft stillness over the city. I glanced at her, the light from the street lamp catching in her eyes, and I felt it again, the pull, the fragile gravity that had started it all. I reached out, brushing my fingers across hers. She squeezed back, a quiet affirmation of presence, a small, intimate pact between two people who had chosen honesty, desire, and connection over fear. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Life rarely offers clean endings. But in that moment, wrapped in her warmth, I didn't care. We had found each other in all our flawed, human complexity, and that was enough. We stayed there, silent, holding on to the moment, hearts beating in sync, aware of the world beyond the windows, but entirely in our own. And maybe that was the point. Maybe being seen, truly seen, was the bravest, riskiest, most beautiful thing of all. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?